And a very good morning. Well, if you've watched this entire series or you're in my project management class at Central Oregon Community College, you know that we are at the end. We are at Chapter 12, Project Completion. Now, just because this is the last section of project management, the introduction to project management, concepts, etc., let me be very clear that this can be the most important portion of the project. This is where we finalize the project. We get stakeholders to agree that the project is complete. Notice I didn't say successful, I said complete. You know, we're ready to turn it over. We're ready for it to start producing the return on investments that it was intended to produce or provide whatever benefit it was. Now, as we do this, there is so much for us to learn about a project in completion, and realize that a project in completion does not mean that we completed the project. It can be a failed project that we still want to do a lot of these project completion methodologies on, so that we can learn from our failures as much as we learn, if not more, than we learn from our successes. So in this section, we're going to look at different means of cutover. That's sort of the last part. That's where the system is up and running, and if we're replacing an existing system, what it looks like, feels like, sounds like to cut over from the old system to the new. There's different ways of doing that. There's advantages and disadvantages, and we'll look at those. There's also describing the process associated with project closure. Again, not just a completed project, but also projects that have failed. And then we're definitely going to want to look at individual performance reviews, how the project manager did, how the stakeholders did. Yes, how the stakeholders did. How were they as stakeholders or clients in the project? And how were the folks that contributed on the project team? Do a post-mortem review, project audit, very important. We'll talk about that. And then evaluation of the project's MOV are just a few things that we'll do. Now, as we start this, at the end of the project, right, we're ready to implement the project. It focuses on installing or delivering the project's major deliverable, the information system, whatever it was, and starting to either have data in there and producing additional data, having the system functional, whatever the case may be. And the way we do that is with 3 tactical implementation plans, either a direct cutover, parallel, or phased, and we'll look at those. And then finally, the postmortem or close-out meeting or celebration. So we'll talk more about that as well. So first of all is the idea of cutover. If we are replacing an existing system, how do we go about stopping data entry and use of the existing system and being replaced by the new system? Okay, so one methodology is direct cutover, and that is on a certain day, the old system stops being used, except for perhaps historical, and we'll talk about that in a minute, historical data analysis, and the new system starts being used. Now, what this means is Monday morning, here we are. We've trained users for weeks. We've given them dummy systems with dummy data for them to learn and train on. They're comfortable with the system, and now we're ready to take the system into production. Realize that training is not part of the cutover here, folks. Training needs to have already been done. So the old system, why would we do this? Well, the old system failed, or the old system's so bad, we're going to just go with the new system. But if the system is mission critical, meaning we need it each and every day, hour after hour, to conduct our business, this may not be the best way to do it. Okay, and we'll talk about why and a little bit more as we look at other opportunities. So risks, not always painless. If the new system goes down, if the new system has major bugs that we didn't pick up during training, during testing, etc., we need to go ahead and address those quickly, because essentially the system may be down or non-productive, not returning that investment that was intended, right? This is going to frustrate users. It's definitely going to frustrate customers that call in. All of those lead to decreased revenue for a period of time, missed deadlines, whatever the case may be. It definitely places more pressure on the project team to cut over, because it's like, hey, we're now driving the new car. The old car is gone. So parallel is another opportunity, and it works pretty well. Now, as we talk about this and going a little bit back to direct cutover, we need to talk about data transfer. And what I mean is data allocation or data movement from the old system to the new. You know, it needs to be determined how much of the old data needs to come over. Are we really looking at doing a direct cutover where we never want to utilize the old system, in which case we need to bring much more data from the old system to the new? Okay, and that's called data conversion. And realistically, if you get 60 or 70% of the data from an old system converted to the new system in its correct place, in its usable form and function in the new system, that is a great data conversion rate. Now, what that means is, what do we do with the rest of the data? Is it old data that we don't worry about? Or is it that we need to have actually data entry parties where existing data from the old system is reported out and put into the new system? Now, that can be very, very costly, and you really need to do within your project a cost-benefit analysis to determine if it's viable and valuable to do that. Okay. As we run two systems, though, of course, this becomes more pressure for the users. They're having to do their jobs twice, which means they're half as productive throughout the day if it's being done correctly. Okay. In the fact that data has to be entered in the old system and entered in the new one. There's also the fact that because users are used to the old system, they're going to do a better job and be more efficient in the old system, and we're now giving them a crutch. Which means if they're comfortable and they're not supporting this project, they're going to just implement the data they need to do their job in the old system, and it's not going to be available in the new system. You know, it can increase confidence on the new system because we get to compare, but it also, again, can decrease the value of the new system because, again, people are creatures of habit. We talked about people and the challenges we have with them within a new system implementation, communication, training, etc. And here we're actually making it even more difficult for them to want to switch over. You know, it takes longer, requires more resources, you bet. But the advantages are if something goes wrong with the new system, we're not out of business, right? So if we're mission critical on a system, we might want to do this for a period of time. And if it looks like it's going well, we might actually cut that time, okay? A lot of times, companies will run parallel systems for upwards of a month till they can close out the month, close out the financial data, do reports, and make sure that their report or business cycle can be met by the new system, not just the ability to put in data. Now, another example of a cutover that I happen to like really well is the idea of a phased implementation or phased cutover, okay? Now, the reason this works really well is because, number one, what we can do is we can take our entire project and we can break it up into manageable phases to where we can actually deliver a phase of the project that can be used, can start creating value, can start generating revenue or decrease cost that meets the company's biggest need. Now, as we do this, though, we need to have done all of that planning so that we know what the ultimate goal of the entire project is. But if we can go ahead and meet the biggest pain point for the organization, we suddenly start to develop some really great trust in us as a team, whether internal or external or a consulting team. We start delivering value sooner than later. So if it's a 6-month implementation and 30 days in, we're delivering value, that's going to help. The end users are going to see and experience that value sooner. Not to mention, we're going to be able to see what challenges come with that phase and fix those in subsequent phases of the project. Now, with all of this that sounds wonderful, and hopefully I've sold you on this, there's also the fact that it is costly. Because now we're running two systems again. Hopefully we can do this in a phased approach to where whatever's being done in the new system doesn't have to be done in the old system. It does allow for an organized and managed approach for implementing system modules. So if we're talking about, this works really well, by the way, in ERP systems, enterprise resource planning systems, where we have front end to back end unified system. And what we'll do is we'll implement modules. So at a former private industry that I worked, we had a real challenge with customer relationship management, CRM. And what we chose to do was look at a complete new enterprise system, not just a single CRM solution, but an enterprise system that would help us manage marketing, manage sales, turns sales and marketing into prospects, prospects into customers, customers into orders, orders into manufacturing, manufacturing into quality. You get where I'm going with this. Quality into delivery, delivery into customer service and management of the products that we were selling and supporting, and then into product life cycles. And all of this including purchasing, quality control, engineering, the whole thing. But the biggest issue for the company at the time was sales and marketing. We didn't know who we were marketing to, which prospects were qualified, who we were selling to. So we implemented a CRM system that was part of a complete agency management system, and then went through, or enterprise resource planning system, sorry, and then went through subsequent models building as we went to create a single unified system so that we didn't have data in one system and data in another and data over here and data in spreadsheets. So hopefully that makes sense as an additional, more expanded option here. Now, as we close a project, we close the project for many reasons. First is the normal reason, which is we've delivered, stakeholders have accepted, and we want to close the project. We want to bring it to fruition, if you will. We'll also do a project closure prematurely, meaning if the project's not completed, but we've decided to stop the project, or we've actually decided to go ahead and implement what we have so far, see how it works, because maybe there were challenges or something, and then we'll come back and continue more of the project. So consequently, we continue along that path, and we close the first part so that we can learn, so that we can do, knowing that we're not taking on the second part as part of the first part project. Parts as parts. Hopefully that all makes sense. Perpetuate or runaway, we see the project is never ending. We want to close it. We want to get information from it. Maybe we're continuing the project. Maybe the project has, as the fourth thing says, failed. Now, you've heard me say it a lot, folks. Every day we want to be asking, is today the day we close this project? Are the cost overruns too much? Is the team not getting work done? Is the team bickering amongst themselves? Is there drama? Is there stuff that you just clearly can see is going to affect this project, and it's not going to come to fruition? It's not going to be successful for the company. So the sooner we can stop the expenses of the project, the better off. But even if we do that, we don't just stop by saying it's a failed project. We go ahead and go through the project closure procedure so that we can learn and document what happened so that we don't do those things again. And finally, change priorities. The idea that we misjudged the value, we needed changes, technologies changed, we have another option, we're going a different way. Funding has been, stopped for the project. I've had many projects stop because what we expected in the way of capital influx into a startup company didn't come. And so we had to put projects on hold or stop projects altogether. All of these, we still want to go through the project closure process. Now, as we do this and we close the project, let's again focus on our human assets, okay? These are project team members that have spent a lot of time, a lot of resource, a lot of energy, mental, physical, emotional energy in making this project successful. And now suddenly we've taken this value that they had, the reason for coming to work, away. So the question becomes, do we have other projects for them to work on? Have we communicated that? A lot of times folks will slow down at the end of the project, being concerned that there aren't future jobs, there aren't future things. They're worried about bugs, they're worried about resources and reputation. Should we put something into play, knowing that there's existing challenges? Resources are running out. Document attains paramount importance because, again, we want that future knowledge base. Whether the project completed or not, we can always learn. So let's talk about a project that completed successfully. What really is a successful project? If we completed a project in today's IT environment, that's a successful project. Even if it has cost overruns, even if it has time overruns, budgetary issues, personnel issues, whatever, if we're putting it into play and it's able to produce revenue, that's a good thing. Now, maybe the return on investment timeline is longer than the 6 months we expected. It's 8 months. Doesn't necessarily mean it's not a successful project. We still want to learn and audit those projects so that we have the knowledge to do a better job next time, right? So this becomes a real challenge on successful projects to remember to go back and do this work, because suddenly we're onto a new project. So make sure that in your project plan, you actually plan time for the project team to remain together to do this work. I'm going to pause while this phone goes off. So again, what makes a successful project? Well, it really depends. Even if we miss dates weren't met, etc., whatever, we need to go ahead and close the project. And let's not forget, again, the sense of panic that can come over players as we implement the system or things come to fruition. So the other side is the project sponsor and acceptance. A project can't close until the sponsor, right, or stakeholders accept the project as complete, okay? Just to go back, I want to make sure that I said, make sure that in your project plan you have time allocated to the project closer. Okay, that way you can close the project successfully without having the pressure of moving on to another project if it's built into your project plan. So something else to build in. So likelihood of acceptance is approved when, we've built trust throughout the project, right? We've met deliverables, we've met timelines, we've communicated when we didn't, even if the project is riddled with challenges throughout, it can still be a successful project in the end. Completion of project deliverables, milestones, everything is thoroughly documented. And when we do this, we can present back to the sponsors results. Now, some sponsors are just what's called short-term. They look at the short-term buyer-seller relationship in which getting the most out of their money is important criteria for accepting the project, meaning, okay, yeah, you're done. Let's start putting it into gear. Let's move. Let's go. Let's make money from this. But then there's also knowledgeable sponsors, that realize the important stake of the outcome of the project. As a result, they're actively involved throughout the project in the construction, in the constructive manner. These are stakeholders that are, top notch, that are leaders. Realize that, as I've stated many times, top management has to be committed to the project, even if they're not on the project team. They're the ones that people look to as the leaders of the organization. So when they come out and say, look, we're going to do this project, it's going to be successful, I am doing this on the project, or I am supporting the project in this way, the project becomes more valuable to both the project team and the folks that will be impacted by the project. So hopefully that all makes sense. We definitely want those people. Now, finally, the final project report. I'm going to stop right here. We'll talk in detail about the final project report in the next video. Take care.